2001 Porsche 911 Carrera 4, and it is of the infamous 996 generation. At the time of shooting this video, this car had just over 101,000 miles on it. Clearly, as you can see, it's running just fine. So, should you be afraid to own a 996, let alone one with 100,000 miles on it? Well, in this video, I'm going to be telling you exactly everything that I've had to do to keep this car on the road and running in tip-top shape. Stay tuned. This beautiful steed here, just recently, about a month ago, ticked over the 100,000 mile mark. So, I just want to sit and chat and discuss with you guys what it's like owning an over 100,000 mile 996 911. So to be precise, it's actually over 101,000 miles now. I drive this thing regularly, super regularly. As you've seen in previous videos, I've got my BMW 530xi wagon. That is basically my primary daily driver, the do-it-all daily driver. But in the summer, in spring, and in the fall, whenever the weather allows, this here, that is my go-to. And that's the great thing about a 911. It's so comfortable. It's just such a wonderful car. It's obviously super sporty and fun when you want to do sporty and fun, but it can also just settle in and cruise down the road and get you from A to B, and comfortably and in style. So let's talk about this car. I bought it in June of 2019, so it's now early July of 2021. So I've had it a little bit over 2 years now, and it has been an absolutely great car. I bought it with a little over 92,000 miles on it, so I have put almost 10,000 miles on it myself. But it hasn't stranded me once. It hasn't done anything weird at all, as expected with normal Porsche quality and reliability. It has been a super good car, but I will just kind of go over with you everything that I've done to keep it on the road. And when I say keep it on the road, I don't mean like I said, it hasn't stranded me. It's nothing detrimental. 99% of the things that I have done to this car are kind of preventative, just kind of refreshing it. It is a 2001 model year, so it is a 20-year-old car as of this year, with over 100,000 miles. So obviously it's got some things that have aged on it, and it just, many things that just kind of need refreshing. So with that, I have my folder for this vehicle. I do this for every one of my cars. I have a folder that has, of course, title, any sort of like information about, of course I've got all my receipts in there. Pretty much that's the majority of what this is all receipts. But the main thing that I do is I keep a maintenance record on the back, because I do all my own maintenance, with the date, a note about what the service was that was done, and the mileage that it was done on. So I'm just going to go over that with you now to let you know what it has been like in my 2 plus years, and let's see, what was the first mileage? Almost 10,000 miles of driving this car, what all I've had to do to keep this thing on the road and keep it fresh. Alrighty then, so let's talk about everything that I've had to do on this car so far to keep it refreshed and driving well. So first off, right when I got the car, I did an oil change on it. And reason being, I wanted to have a Blackstone oil analysis done on it to make sure that I didn't have any massive engine failures on the horizon. So nothing serious going on there. Fortunately, the Blackstone oil analysis came back just fine. And so then shortly after, I did the water pump thermostat, and then of course at the same time you do a coolant flush, because you drop most of your coolant at that time. Then I did a brake fluid flush just to refresh the brake system. So the purpose of this was I wanted to put a low temperature thermostat in, and I had a sneaking suspicion that the water pump was fairly old. This is just another updating, so preventative so far, and updating old parts and slash, you know, I want the engine to run a little cooler. Next, new tires. I put a clear bra on the car. And when I bought the car, 2 of the wheels were a little egg-shaped. I think the previous owner had run into a pothole pretty severely. So there was just kind of a vibration at speed, and I had those straightened out, no problem. I installed rear sway bar links, so this was one item that was kind of starting to go bad. The boots on the rear sway bar links had failed, so that was one. Needed to update those parts. Engine mounts were going bad, they're sagging quite a bit, and you can feel a lot of vibration throughout the cabin at idle. So did new engine mounts. This was the big one. Last January of 2020, I did IMS bearing, timing chain tensioners, clutch, pressure plate, dual mass flywheel, throwout bearing, clutch release lever, slave cylinder, and I also did, I flushed the power steering fluid because you kind of have to like move the power steering reservoir to get to one of the timing chain tensioners, so I had drained the power steering fluid. Drive shaft dampener as well, that connects basically that goes up to the front differential, and I did an oil change at that time, of course, because you have to drain your oil. Next, I did a front differential and transaxle fluid replacement, because to my knowledge that fluid had probably never been done in the life of the car. Then I did new rotors and pads on all 4 corners, another oil change. This one was to just kind of check on the status of, you know, after doing the IMS bearing, was there any kind of weird metals showing up in the oil? Turned out no, and it came back just fine. I also replaced the oil pressure regulator. These kind of go bad. It is a common thing where the springs just kind of wear out. So I had one from a very low mileage Cayman from my Cayman that I had replaced on that car, so I just swapped it out with that part, and it actually helped the oil pressure maintain quite a bit higher actually, so that was good. The spring was obviously wearing out. And then in January of this year, I noticed my muffler was failing, as I had shown you in a previous video. There was that baffle inside that had come unwelded. So I created my own muffler bypass, and to those astute observers, you will notice that that is not the exhaust or the muffler bypass that's on the car currently. I will explain that in an upcoming video, and I also, as promised, I will let you know and show you just exactly what that car sounds like now. It's amazing, just as a little spoiler. So next, I did a total front end clean. I took the front bumper off and cleaned out the radiators between the condensers and the radiators on both sides of the car. There was so much gunk, and I don't know how the car could cool itself with the amount of stuff that was just packed up in that between the condenser and radiator on either side. So I did that. I installed some custom fan switches to be able to control when the high rad fan kicks on, kind of working hand in hand with the low temperature thermostat. I will actually explain that in a future video as well for those 996 owners that are interested, that you can, you know, kind of more actively control your fan and your coolant temperature much better. And then in March, I did a soft brake line install. I upgraded to the braided steel lines, and I also did a brake fluid flush at that time because it had been about 2 years. I was coming up on 2 years, and then most recently I did another oil change. Oh, the right front tie rod end, the boot had failed. It had, you know, dry rotted and disintegrated. The ball joint was still good, but it was time to replace. Obviously, it would have failed pretty soon. And then I also did a coolant flush and a thermostat modification, which I will explain at the same time as I explain the high rad fan switch install. This all kind of goes together. So you can see, right after I got the car, I did quite a few things in 2019 to kind of just right off the bat upgrade and refresh several items. And in 2020, I did the IMS bearing. That was the big one. Other than that, you know, just maintenance, a couple little items. So far in 2021, kind of the same thing. And it should come to no surprise to you that Porsches, of all things, are also more expensive than they usually are, which are normally quite expensive. Now, up until recently, the 996 and the 997 were by far the most affordable Porsche 911 generations. Unfortunately, the 997 has risen to the same ranks as many of the other very expensive 911 generations. 996 has also increased quite a bit, meaning that in order to get yourself into a truly affordable 911, you need to buy, most likely, a higher mileage 996. So don't be afraid to buy a higher mileage example of one of these cars, because with a little bit of effort and a little bit of refreshing, you can have a fantastic ownership experience for a very long time with one of these. Thank you so much for tuning in to FunAhead TV.